Welcome to I'm Not a Fan Unless I Have a Podcast. I'm John Hanford, and thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for following on Instagram at GizzFanPod. This is a very niche show, and, so for me to know that people are engaging and listening and watching and doing whatever, hitting me up to be on. I mean, thank you so much. It makes me, it's fulfilling for me personally, especially as we're about to, it seems ever more likely that we're about to head into another big lockdown. And, which is how this podcast was birthed in the first place. So, I guess I'm just getting, I'm just trying to psych myself up, hype myself up, and not psych myself out about the prospects for this podcast and whatever other stuff, I might think to do. If we have to go back into full quarantine like we did last spring. So anyway, I'm trying to keep my head above water and, happy generally. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But I just wanted to say thank you. Means a lot. This episode is a fun one because not only is the episode itself like a legitimately really fun and thought-provoking conversation, but it's also the last podcast before the 20th, before KG is released this Friday. We're in a Gizz week, and I didn't realize this until yesterday. I just figured, the 20th is still probably a week or two away. No, it's this week. It's just a few days. And so another reason I'm glad that that we have this podcast, that this is the episode that's coming out before KG is released, is it reinvigorated somehow. I had no idea that this was possible, but it reinvigorated my love for Gizz, just because of how many different facets of the band we explored in depth. And it's honestly made me more excited to listen to KG for the first time at midnight on Friday. So I am absolutely thrilled. This is, in such a weird, in such a time. Sorry, I'm getting all reflexy here, but just with all the, just with everything that's going on, COVID related, that is frustrating, and it's hard for me to articulate words. It's nice when you have something that you realize is you can still do, and that's this podcast. It's I'm getting a new appreciation for doing the shit that I'm doing. And I don't know. It's weird how, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Fuck it. Let's just get right into this episode. This is a really fun one. We've got Egan from Pennsylvania. He's a fucking awesome dude. Teaches kids to play drums and is a pretty accomplished musician himself. So without further ado, here's Egan.
It holds up pretty well, I think I blew it out, though. I played it at a gig that I shouldn't have, and everything was really loud, and I have, a bigger Bassman that I use, a 4x10, but I was like, fuck that, I don't want to bring that out. That's way too heavy. So I brought this out and just cranked it, and I think I blew it out, but, it looks cool there, so that's,
it's all about the aesthetic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's pronounced Egan, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. I've never seen that as a first name, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't Egan or something, or
oh yeah,
or
yeah. I've gotten some wacky ones, man. I've gotten I've gotten letters that aren't even in my name, like Edgar. I've gotten Egan. I've gotten Egan. So it's a last name though. It's not really a first name.
Yeah,
which is interesting,
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre to me how many people fuck up my last name. Like, it's just Hanford. It's pretty easy. But then people will always put like a D in there, you know, like Handford. And then, you know, like, yeah, I mean, like in college, I don't know how many times different people called me Hand Job just because like it was such an easy alteration. But I mean, like, yeah, shit, people call me Hartford. It's annoying. Like,
Hartford,
yeah. Like, you know, I don't have anything against Connecticut per se, but like Hartford, really, like.
Yeah. There's no R in there. Yeah, I don't know, man. People mess my name up all the time, and it's usually, or people spell it wrong. People like pronounce it right because it's pretty straightforward, but like the A, people always put in like an E or like an I sometimes, and I'm like,
it's like people try too hard.
Yeah, they really think too hard, you know.
It's so weird how people think like too hard about all the wrong shit, and then like when it comes to stuff that matters, they're just like, oh well, let's just take the easy way out. But
exactly, yeah. So it works, man.
Yeah. Well, anyway, speaking of dragging stuff out that shouldn't be, let's get right into Gizz. So, you know, thanks for coming on the podcast for one thing.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So I guess like you hit me up just like, dude, I want to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
What's your draw to King Gizz? Like, what got you hooked?
Oh man, there's like way too many things. So the first thing is, I mean, I'm a musician, right? And I've always sort of been drawn to the way they create music as a whole thing. Like they make a product. And that's something in music I love. You know, they're able to make all these notes just like coexist with each other, and it sounds like nothing else I've ever heard before. You know what I mean? The way they can maneuver different styles throughout their albums. You know, the way they can just, I mean, their live performances. You know, they just released how many fucking live things this year? It's like 5. Was it like 5 or 6?
Yeah, I mean,
I can't even count. Like,
yeah, I mean, they released like the three live shows for the bushfire relief back in January, and then they released Asheville and Chunky later, and then live in San Francisco. So yeah, 6.
Yeah, 6.
Like, yeah, it's it's nuts. Like, it seems like they record everything. Like, if they wanted to, they could just release whatever show.
That's what I mean. And the Gizz shows are like spot on because they know what I admire so much about them is, you know, as a musician, they know how to write. You know, they're not just noodling. I mean, Gizz from like 2010 to like 2014 was pretty like noodly. And that's like, I'll be honest, that's my favorite shit. Like I love early Gizz. Just because they're so loose and all their ideas are very, you know, you can like tell where they're going with it and what, you know, like if you follow them from like what they were doing back in like 2012 and they slowly progressed into this like thing, it, you know, like the whole Gizzverse thing starts to like unfold as you keep going, you know, and now we're here and now it's like, you know, there's a whole fucking Reddit thing on it, you know, so it's awesome, you know, the way they've like formed this whole world around them is really cool, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's and so much of it's like obviously the whole Gizzverse is kind of what that's kind of like the loop, if you will, like it.
Oh yeah.
So I used to work in mobile gaming, so like we would always when we're talking about engagement and like what makes a game good, you want there to be like a really solid loop where there's where basically there's always something that's going to keep people coming back in and continue playing and, you know, incentivize them to play. And with Gizz, that's kind of like the Gizzverse, right? That's kind of like the architecture of what kind of holds the whole thing together. You know, in addition to all the like actual tangible stuff that they're working on. Yeah, I mean, like it's such a cool thing, and it seems to even transcend like from like there's stuff from their early stuff that still sort of syncs up with the newer stuff. Like I was just listening to Oddments yesterday, and Stressin' came on, and like one of the lyrics is, one of the lines is stress colors my dreams orange. And then I'm thinking, oh, well, the fucking Some of Us video, like that's a pretty stressful theme.
Yeah.
It's orange as fuck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just like little nuggets like that are just sprinkled all throughout, and you have no idea, are they actually intentional, or is a lot of it just like, a happenstance, like subconscious or, coincidental shit.
Yeah.
Oop, we lost your video.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody called me. It's all right. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, yeah, I mean, the cool thing about it is you're able to go into each album and like interpret its own thing. You know what I mean? Like you're able to like, like let's take like I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. Like that could be, even though it is the 6th album they made, it in the whole Gizzverse story, it could be like the 10th album. You know what I mean? And you could interpret Polygon Wonderland as like the first, as like the beginning. You know what I mean? With like the castles and the fucking the wizards, and it goes so deep that I don't even know where to start. It's such a crazy, open to interpret sort of subject that's so cool, because you can always talk about different variations of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they were just like fucking around and just being like, well, our fans are starting to like coin this thing, and then I maybe occasionally they were like, all right, well, let's play along. Or maybe like, there was an interview with Eric Moore, and he said early on, like, yeah, like all these albums connect, and that like blew my mind. And I was like, okay, he said that, he's in the band, this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about, so I gotta figure this out now. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Definitely. And like I can't help but think, just playing devil's advocate, like perhaps when he's saying like all the albums are connected, maybe he didn't mean that in the same way that like everybody sort of interprets the Gizzverse to be a thing. Like maybe there could just be, because like, for example, with like with Nonagon, that very clearly developed from Mind Fuzz.
Yeah.
But perhaps and again, I'm just being a dick here, but like perhaps what Eric meant was just that like it evolved out of like them jamming to Mind Fuzz and like the whole Cellophane and Mind Fuzz bass riff, how that basic, like, because they always incorporate that into whatever kind of jam they're doing, whether it's Nonagon or Murder of the Universe, like, yeah, anyway, but I mean it's fascinating, but
there's a lot of like interesting melodies too. They all kind of repeat, and that's what I love. You can always like jump back in to like an album and just be like, okay, I heard this on this album, and then I heard this other melody on this album, and like there's a lot of, there's some albums where like there's like melodies that you don't ever hear again, like Quarters. There's a lot of melodies on that are just like, okay, that's what they did in that time. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I love about them too. They're just able to like pick one thing and just do it and then move on. And that's like a thing a lot of musicians like struggle with, is like, okay, what do I do here? Maybe they just overthink it. Gizz just like never overthinks it. They just like put something out and then they're fucking on to the next thing. And that is so cool, Like I love that.
Yeah, I mean, like, and speaking of Quarters, like, sort of in the same vein as like Infest the Rat's Nest, because like that was just sort of a one-off. Who knows? Maybe they'll do some like other thrash metal record, but like it very, very much seems to be just kind of like a one-off thing. Like, hey, we did the thrash metal record. It was like,
exactly.
here was like a little like fantasy tangent. Of thrash metal, and like that was, and they did such a good job with it. Like it's such a perfectly done thematic thrash album. And it's just like, all right, I think they kind of covered all the bases there. Like now they can go back to I'm just really excited for whatever KG the rest of it sounds like, you know, because so far we've got we've got 4 songs from it released as singles, and they all sound pretty wildly different from each other. So it's
So Honey came out first, and I was like, this is really cool. This is totally their next, you know, microtonal Flying Banana album. Like, you know, they were pointing at it the whole time. Like, and some of the other tracks, I mean, I just sat there and watched their music videos and just laughed my ass off because they're so fucking insane. I mean, those dudes are insane. They're out of their mind the way they're able to put these like serious. I mean, Honey was like that's like a cool music video because I guess like Stu shot that like right in the middle of lockdown.
Yeah.
And there's like nobody around and it's pretty eerie. But man, you watch like Straws in the Wind, and it's a fucking joke. I mean, it's good, but it's like they're making fun of it. You know what I mean? Which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Straws in the Wind is I think that's one of the best songs that King Gizzard has ever come out with. I like it's just such a relevant piece, and I've been harping on this the last few episodes, but like it's it's just such a relevant thing with everything that's going on with, like, you know, the social dilemma, since that came out basically at the same time. Like, I think the social dilemma came out like a week after Straws. And
you're talking about the movie.
Yeah.
The documentary.
The documentary on Netflix.
Really
yeah. Because they're kind of exploring like the same concepts, like basically all the oversaturation of the news media is like making people lose their goddamn minds. And and I think that like that is sort of what they're illustrating with like the ridiculous humor, like the ridiculous antics that they throw in there. Because like I mean, you know, like I'm a comedian, and I think a big reason for that is that like at some point you just lose the will to like try to make a serious argument as to why you think the world is fucked up. So you might as well just throw shit at the wall and laugh. Like
exactly. Yeah. And they're Australian. That's like, I think that's like in their blood over there. Cause you know, you live in a place like Australia where literally every fucking thing can kill you. You're not going to be like, you know, afraid of it. You're just going to laugh at it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the vibe I get from these guys. Like, they don't give a fuck. They're very just like, we're very, you know, like it's hard to put cause I'm not Australian, you know what I mean? I'm American. So it's a little different over here, but what I've seen over there with the culture and some of the people I know that have lived there, it's very different. And the attitude of work is different, you know? America, it's just go, 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 you know what I mean? Go to work, you know, you lose 30 years of your life just working, you know?
Yeah.
And I think these guys have it like, no, you got to like slow down and like enjoy life a little bit and be weird. You know what I mean? Like, just, that's their whole thing. It's just like, be weird and different. Don't put anything in a box, you know, which I love. That's like their whole thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's very perceptive. Like have you ever met an Australian person, or like just like visiting the States?
Yeah. And they were out of their fucking minds. Like, I met an Australian person at a music festival, and they were fucking nuts.
They're fucking fun. Like,
they're fun. Oh yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, like I feel like it has to do, you know, same kind of like how in America, like we're just like we're very much in charge of our own realities. And like we just have that, like there is nobody should be living like that. Like, but like we live an insane lifestyle, and I think it's based on like how the country was incepted, and you know, and all that shit that we don't have to get into, that's super dark. But in Australia, like they, like originally that's where the British sent their prisoners, just to be jail, and it's like they played themselves. They have no idea, except the Australians do, because like they're just like living their life. Like it's like, all right, what were you brought up on? It doesn't matter. Like, let's just have a party and, you know, and enjoy these brown snakes and shit.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I love that. You know, some days I wake up and I'm like, fuck, man, why couldn't I have been born in Australia? Why couldn't I have been born in a little like shack in the middle of the fucking like in the middle of whatever, and just, have fucking snakes everywhere and spiders. I've seen pictures of like spider webs just everywhere over there, like just everything's covered in spider webs. It's fucking crazy. And you don't see that here, like there's so many things over there, like with nature and with, even with politics, like it's just different,
Yeah.
Which is cool. I love meeting people from other countries, because you kind of get, a good, you get a good perspective on like what it's like over there. I have a friend who's from Russia, and he lives in America, but he's not, you know what I mean? He totally doesn't act like the average American, his mindset's different. So it's just cool, that we get to enjoy music from Australia right now, because a lot of it, like, and it's not even just King Gizzard, like the whole Australian psych scene right now, and from like Melbourne and, all of it on that like whole coast really is like really, really, really cool. Everything happening is just awesome. Because you have like, I think where the Murlocs from, they're from like,
they're Australia.
Yeah. They're
I'm pretty sure they're Melbourne. Considering like it's Ambrose and Cookie's other band, like,
Babe Rainbow.
Somewhere nearby.
Babe Rainbow's from like the coast, I believe.
Is Melbourne not on the coast?
Yeah, those dudes are awesome. Those dudes are like surfer farmer guys. They're awesome. I read some like interviews with them, and they're out there. They're really, really cool. Where are they from? I can't remember, but they're from like a beach town that's like all 60 hippie, still.
Which guys are from the beach town?
Babe Rainbow.
Oh, Babe Rainbow. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly don't know enough about them. I've only listened to like I think their last album that they came out with. But yeah, I mean, I love their sound. It's cool. I just haven't dug into like their origin. But yeah, that's another thing that's great about Flightless, because like, in addition to Gizz, like we're basically getting like a package deal, like all these other great, unique psych bands that are all in the same label. They're all friends. And it's just like, it makes you want to be a part of the scene. Like, exactly. Here we are, we're talking on Zoom, like wishing that we were in Australia, like, and that's solely because of the music.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the culture that, that spawned it. But yeah.
The whole Flightless thing is like it's a dream, because you have these people who are just normal, hardworking people who put together this thing, like, and mainly Eric, but it just grew because they just kept working and putting stuff out, like that record label has come such a long way, and it's the greatest thing because the best people support it. You know what I mean? Like Flightless will always be successful, I think, because people like me and you who are just like engulfed in this thing that is all this really good music coming out, like kind of the same spot in Australia. It's just like, we're always just going to dive into that and just be like, okay, like I'm going to get on the fucking computer right away as soon as the next record comes out. You know what I mean? Like, and it's going to sell out in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Will that ever go away? I don't think so. I think Flightless has developed like the best fucking fan base ever. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think just in how they operate, like you're saying, like they operate unlike any other record label, just in that they're primarily in it for the music, and like the money aspect is like, obviously that's ultimately the I guess that's the bottom line, but they have a really good sense of how to balance that out and not burn themselves out or burn any of the artists out. Like there's actual concern and care for the artists, it seems.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just so weird in an age where, like, at least I look at every business and I'm just a cynical fuck about the whole thing, because I'm just like, all right, I know you don't actually care about my experience. You just want to, like put a limit to how many negative Google reviews or Yelp reviews or whatever there is. And, like there's like a lot of fake concern for a lot of customers company or a lot of companies customer bases, I feel.
Yeah.
And with Flightless, they're like sincerely into it, and they know that they have a good product and they want to fulfill that. So it's like,
Yeah,
it gives
that's
me
the whole
faith
thing.
in commerce again.
Yeah, they are as good as musicians as they are businessmen, to be honest. They can sell, and they could sell dog shit and it would fucking sell. I mean, they're so good at what they do, but you're right. They care about what they do. They care about their product. It's a good quality product. You know what I mean? Everything they put out, even with what Gizz has put out on their own, I mean, those are quality products, you know. And I think I don't know if they're pressing their own wax, if they're, if they like have all that machinery, but I saw that they were pressing their own shit and doing it DIY, which is, they're going back to what they were doing before. I mean, it's really, really cool. I mean, I think back in like 2011, 12, they were probably sending their stuff off to like Pirates Press, and they only had so much money because they couldn't fucking get them packaged right. They had to ship them out in pizza boxes like that. That's fucking awesome. Like, nobody that I know does that. Like, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Like,
Did they actually send stuff out in pizza boxes?
oh yeah. And, there was I have quarters that apparently got sent out in a pizza box and got damaged. It's an original gold quarters. And
Oh shit.
I'm like, okay, well this is okay, I guess. And I guess the first batch of the 12 bar bruises, like the red splatters, they're all fucked up. And they were like, buy it. They have it on their website, like, buy at your own expense because these got fucked up. But now they're going up for like fucking $500.
Oh, that's so wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I do think that like now they do press their own stuff. And like I know the Grateful Dead used to press their own stuff as well, because like I think either Columbia or Capitol Records, one of the two, or maybe it's a different company, they originally tried to press like a bunch of Grateful Dead albums, and like Bob Weir got one of the albums, put it on his record player, and the needle just zipped right across the whole thing. He was like, fuck this, we're taking this into our own hands. Because like they were trying to press, I think 1,500 copies with each master. And from that point forward, they were just like, all right, we're doing a max 500 pressings per I don't know what the thing's called. Per master, is that what it is? Like the master wax presser. I don't know the technical terms, but but basically like they would just do like a run of 500 at a time and then move on to the next like master disc or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you used to actually press the vinyl.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Gizz does something like that, or maybe they're doing like, I don't know exactly. I'm just rambling now, but it's really cool that they press their own shit.
I love that. I love that they've always supported that too. They've always supported other record companies that do that. They've always supported other labels that press vinyl still. It's amazing that they still, most of their market is merchandise, because a lot of people are into the artistic fact of what they do, because dude, Jason Galea is a fucking god. That dude has made so many contributions to that band. He's the 7th member now. He used to be the 8th, but they have like a posse surrounding them that's all full of really good fucking people, and that's what I love. It's never any bullshit, and you can like tell that they're all just kind of, like you said before, like this one big family. So they're always trying to help out whatever they can, like, which is that's what a family does. That's the whole point of making music and then selling it and then just being like, all right, this is cool, like this is how you earn a living. I think that's every musician's dream. They're basically living every musician's dream because they can do whatever the fuck they want at this point. You know what I mean? They don't, like, the cool thing about Flightless is Eric was their drummer. So Eric was just like, we can make 5 albums this year. That's fucking cool. Like, whatever. They don't have somebody pointing the finger at them telling them to do this or that, this has got to sound this way, this has got to sound that way. Like, I don't think they've ever had to really deal with that, because I think early on, Stu had said nobody really wanted to work with them, just because of, they were kind of this really loud, intense 7-piece garage rock band. Like, they're probably just starting out and playing these really loud, like weird things that, Stu was writing at the time. And I don't know. It's kind of, I like the way it turned out, because they just said, well, fuck it. We're just going to do everything ourselves, because if nobody's going to work with us, like, we're going to learn how to press our own wax. We're going to open up our own label. We're going to do all this. Like, I can't imagine what that whole thing of Flightless and Gizz would have been if that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like,
oh God, I mean, Jason Galea probably would have had to, find another job or something, because the record company would insist on using their own artists or something, or maybe they try to pay Jason like barely anything. But I think Jason is, I mean, he's one of the most important figures in the Gizzverse, really, because like, he's the one that's bringing the visual to all the different things. Like if it weren't for Jason, what the fuck would Hantayumi look like? Nobody.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, there would be different iterations, of like, would he look more like Bender from Super or Futurama, or would he look, more like I don't know, Darth Vader or something, like, so yeah. I mean, his contributions just to the visual of the, like, the whole aesthetic of the band is fascinating, because even with his art form, even though he's got sort of that signature with his style, like, he's also experimenting with new shit, doing like a lot of I mean, just the fact that he makes such different designs for all the show posters, it's just, I mean, the dude's a genius, and it's just fascinating as hell to nobody else knows the names of like their other bands or their other favorite band's artist, right? Like right. So like, what other bands even have a full-time artist, right? Like, don't they usually contract that out or something? Like,
right. Yeah, it's interesting. They've made all these weird little characters in their universe, like all of Nonagon. You have like the fucking what is it, the invisible face, like that whole people vultures video is incredible, because there's all these like mythological like guys like running around, and it's like it's just, I can't imagine what it would be like if that, if they missed that step of, okay, let's try to incorporate like some like, mythology in here. You know what I mean? Because they talk about, some of their lyrics are so profound that you could interpret it so many different ways, which is awesome, and that's like where you can like mix the Gizzverse around and shit, like, but you could also like I guess Stu was reading all these, I guess Stu reads a lot of books, and he interprets a lot of what he reads into his lyrics too. So it's, and I'm not that bright sometimes. So some of the lyrics I'm just like, oh my God, this is so sick, but what the fuck is he talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Stu is so in his own world with like how he, consumes, media, really, because that's what books are. They're just a different, arguably more substantial form of media to consume. I mean, it's just it's fascinating, and like, also to what you're saying about what you were saying earlier about sort of being able to jump all over. It doesn't really matter where in the Gizzverse you start. You just, like, once you get the whole thing, then you have the context. But I was like, when you said that, it reminded me of how like C.S. Lewis, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the first book he wrote in the Chronicles of Narnia. But now if you buy like the full, the whole set, like, it's book number 3, since there are like 2 prequels or something. And I kind of like that approach to, like, I loved that approach in the Chronicles of Narnia, just like, oh yeah, let's just, like, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is such a fantastic book. It was one of my favorites from my childhood.
That was a good book, yeah.
And I like how that just became the portal to the rest. Even the stuff that happened in the past, right? Like, it sort of it was like science fiction in a way, unintentionally, but yeah, I like, so that's what I like about Gizz as well. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just like satisfying to see like wherever you just jumped in, you're going to see like that come up again, or maybe you'll see like how that idea was born if you go back into some different albums. So.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like, I started listening to Gizz in around like 2000. I don't really remember. I always kind of knew who they were, but they were always just kind of like ridiculous. So it's just like, I gotta like listen to these guys, but I gotta like listen to them in like the right context. I mean, I just kind of forgot about them until I started seeing like Paper Mache, Dream Balloon like pop up in my record store. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna like check these guys out because now, I'm starting to see them more. And luckily, I got into them kind of before, all like the whole Gizzverse thing. You didn't really see a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like, they just kind of released Nonagon, and that's kind of when I got into them. And I was listening to Nonagon. I'm like, this is pretty good, but it took me like a little bit to get into it because I was so into what they released like before that. I was super into like Quarters and Float Along, Fill Your Lungs and Oddments. Like, those are actually the first songs that I heard. It's really weird because I just thought they were like this psychedelic band. They were just another psychedelic band. And then it starts like unfolding over the years, then they started in 2017 releasing all those crazy fucking albums. And then once it got to like Sketches, I was like, okay, they're really like onto something here. Like, they're doing something that's intentional. They're not just like putting out records to sell records. They're like doing something here, Yeah. And then Poly came out, and then they released it for free, and that's when it was just like, okay, these guys are fucking awesome. But that's when I was like hooked. I was like, they're having so many different people press this thing. I don't know any record label that's just been like, here, we made this. We're not going to capitalize on it. We want you to do that. Like, that's fucking awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and that goes back to the whole notion of insourcing, right? Like, like I was saying with Jason, he's their full-time artist, and no other band really has that. I mean, and also by having the fans or whoever the fuck wants to press their stuff, like just giving them free range with that, also giving them free range with the Automation video a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that was sick,
I mean,
too. Yeah.
The whole thing is just like a massive like symbiotic relationship. It's like they basically taken all the business failures of like the Grateful Dead and turned them into just like massive successes for themselves.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, like, there's so many, and like that I've harped on this plenty, but like there are so many parallels you can draw between the business models of Gizz and the Grateful Dead. I mean,
very, very extremely DIY,
Yeah.
Everything is very just free and just very, not free, but just very like loose. They have a loose business structure because they're not trying to they're not really trying to make money and then like book it, like a lot of artists do. Like, a lot of artists will do this thing where they'll just be like, well, I just want to make one song and that's it. Like, I just want to have a hit and say I did that. But to these guys, this is like what they do. This is why they're here. And it's like this whole like, okay, well, we're just going to keep making music till it doesn't feel right anymore, and I hope that's, not anytime soon, but, they're definitely not going to put out anything they don't want to. And that's where it makes that like symbiotic relationship between the fans and what they do stronger, because we know as fans, like, they're just doing what they want. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not under pressure by any like upper hand. They're just, this is what's going through their fucking brains, and this is what we're going to see. And that's like the purest form of art. And, it's like art and, money basically, like, that we're seeing. Like, they make the two, like, they make those two work together so fucking well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so inspiring to see,
Yeah, I mean, well, and then also, you have the third thing, the third factor is community, really, because like,
yeah.
I mean, the camaraderie between fans. I mean, like, fuck, I would never have a podcast for any other band, you know, and like be able to get a guest or two every week. Like it's, you know, it's such a bananas, like weird, unique, like special thing. And like even amongst themselves, you know, back to like how they get all their friends, you know, to join the Flightless label if their music's good. Like you know, whatever it is, like, you know, whether it's collaborating with Mild High Club or you know, then like having John Angus Stewart directing like Chucky Shrapnel and some of the new videos and stuff. Like they're involving more and more of their friends and like also making new friends along the way. So it's like I feel like we're just gonna get like an infinite body of work to appreciate, because there's always going to be something new sort of spinning off the previous thing that's coming out.
That's what I mean. And that's why I'm always going to support what they do, because it's whether I'm like supporting Flightless or just solely them now, you know, because I don't know what I think they're like half with Flightless, half with what they're doing. I think they're just trying to move away and just kind of do their own things. They moved out of the headquarters. They have their own headquarters. They have like their own space to do like all their music videos. It basically just kind of seems like they just want to have one fucking space to do all their shit in, which is smart. It's financially smart, and it's, you know, time smart, because you're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like they're very smart with, okay, how can we make a good product but also not kill ourselves? You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's very, very important with how, I mean, over the years, how many tours have they fucking done? How many albums have they put out now? You know, like they've done so much in 10 years that bands haven't done in 20 years, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure they've got more songs than like Black Sabbath. I mean, you know. Oh yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I don't know how many albums Sabbath put out, but it wasn't 16, you know? You know? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, I just love that they just put shit out all the time, and they're just always keeping people satisfied. You know, they know how to like keep their fans like wanting more, because they have this. I don't know what would have happened if COVID, you know, didn't happen, because the way they did this and the way they improvised all this shit, you know, like I think a lot of their income is what they sell on the road, you know, touring, playing shows, and they were just like, fuck, we're not doing that this year, so we got to like figure this out. And they did. I mean, I think they pulled, I read an article, they pulled in like $65K by just selling merch over Bandcamp. That is fucking insane. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they made even more than that. I mean, like because especially when, I mean, it just seems like whenever they release anything, they're making a killing, you know, like they released the demos, which that was a fucking great thing that they dropped. So the demos were awesome. I mean, so, you know, it wasn't a live album, but that's like a seventh thing that they put out. And I mean, there was that, the Asheville. I mean, like, and then the fact that they sold shirts for both things, and like, you know, different variations too. Like there were so many, like I almost feel like they might be less incentivized to tour again, just because like they might have made the same amount of money with like not nearly, you know, like just doing it all from home. I hope that I hope they miss the touring enough to, you know, only do this during a pandemic and not just have this be like the new way of business. But yeah. Oh no, they're gonna go back out on tour. It's definitely in their books. Stu has said he's eager to get out and like do things again. He's just trying to keep himself busy. I think all the guys are, you know, like they've all just kind of got stuff going on, you know. I think we're going to see a lot of new music next year. I think Murlocs are working on a new album. I think Pipe is doing his, I think Cook is doing his own thing. I think he's recording shit now. Oh, yeah. That's what it seems like. I mean, he posted a hilarious video of his cat just like walking across. Like, I saw that. Like, that was great. Cook is my favorite member, because he's a sick bass player, and that's mainly what I play, and his bass lines are so fucking good. Everything he does with Gizz makes perfect sense. He's the perfect guitar player for that band. he writes awesome songs, and Pipe Eye is just fucking sick. Like Pipe Eye, every Pipe Eye song is just like, I listened to it. Like I actually didn't know about Pipe Eye until my sister showed me Pipe Eye. My sister was like into Gizz like before they were cool. She saw them in like 2013, which is fucking crazy. Yeah, and she's just like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you saw these guys like a pinnacle. Like they were just fucking becoming Gizz. Like, you know, but yeah, I'm super jealous of that. But what was I saying? Basically,
Pipe Eye.
What's that?
Pipe Eye, all the songs are amazing.
Pipe Eye.
Yeah.
I heard Cosmic Blip, and I'm like, this is like, I didn't know it was Cook Craig, and I'm like, dude, this sounds like Gizzard. This sounds just like, I don't know, something that would be on Quarters. And then it turns out, I'm like, oh, it's Cook Craig. Like, and I had no idea this was like 3 years ago. And then Laugh About Life had come out, and I'm like, dude, this is so good. Like, and then he released,
Inside Outside.
Inside Outside, and man, like he just knows. He's another musician that just knows how things work. He's like an architect brain.
Yeah.
You know, like there's some musicians that like play way too much or just too worried about the notes they're playing. You know what I mean? They're too worried about shredding and doing all this crazy shit, like the visual aspect. Cook Craig is just like, I'll just light up a joint. Okay, we're gonna write this song. We're just gonna record it, and that's it. And that's fucking done. I love that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like in baseball, we call that a super utility player. You know, like yeah. Somebody who's like, I don't know if you're a baseball guy, but like there was this like all-star player for a while named Ben Zobrist, who was like, he was a really good player, but he could play like shortstop, second base, first base, outfield. Like he was, you know, super utility. Yeah. Like he gave you great quality wherever you put him, and that's basically what Cook Craig is. Like he'll like he's playing like he played keys on Paper Mache Dream Balloon, and he plays keys of Straws in the Wind, and then he'll do like some bass parts. He'll plays bass in Murlocs, and like all these bass lines. Like I love how in sketches, you know, when you flip it to side B, and you know, first song Dusk to Dawn or Dawn to Dusk on Ligon Street, it's like you can tell that Cook wrote that bass riff because it's like he has so much personality of like just this, it seems like this whimsical you know, like energy that he just somehow channels perfectly into like his like silly little songs that are also like real, just fucking funny and melancholy and just like so like bleak and observational, but also like uplifting in a weird way. Like it's I mean, shit, I had a whole episode pretty much dedicated to Cook a few ago. Like I don't know if you know Abby Wallace. Yeah, I mean, she's like the #1 Pipe Eye Cook Craig fan, so I had her on, and we just fucking just talked about Cook for an hour. That was a really fun episode. But yeah, I mean, Cook's definitely my favorite. I mean, just like I think in terms of humor and comedy, like he's got his finger on the pulse of that, like more than anybody else in the band. Like, you know, sure, you got Joey, and he's like more outwardly silly, but Cook is such a cerebral dude. Like I honestly compare his writing style to like Seinfeld.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, dude, but he's a wacky writer. I mean, but he makes everything work together, which is what I love about Pipe Eye songs. Like what's that, dude? 1866. That song is a fucking bop. That song is so good. Like, and just the bass lines are so simple, but the way he overlaps things in his own music, and in Gizz too. Like, I'm pretty sure that river riff, like, or no, what is it? He does this like one little slide in the river, and it's super cool. It's just like this the whole time, and like that middle like jam section. It's like that fucking works. Yeah, and it's like this. It's so cool, you know. Like most musicians don't think like that. They don't think to add the atmospheric effect to music. And that's what a lot of the members in Gizz do. Like, I know my second favorite, because I am a drummer, is Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I don't know anybody who really plays drums like him. And it's weird because he's such a simple drummer. His parts aren't hard to play, but he's kind of like a Ringo. He doesn't really do too much, but he plays like the perfect amount of things in songs. Like, and most of his fills are just, straight 16. So every fucking drummer is just psyched to play Gizz. I don't know. I'm a drum teacher, so I teach little kids how to play drums. And most of the time, I'll just show them these like Gizzard songs to like show them how to do like 16th notes, and they're just flying around the kit playing Gizz. And it's fucking awesome,
dude.
Like,
that's sick.
It's so fun, And some of the time they'll just be like, yeah, I don't like this, because most of the time they're just like, they've never heard anything like that before. But like between his drumming and the way that it mixes with everything else, like Gizz has their own like style musically, but they know how to like twist it and bend it and pull it in different directions and make shit like, like 12 Bar Bruise. The drumming on 12 Bar Bruise isn't really any different from the drumming on Paper Mache Dream Balloon. It's just a different sound. It's all acoustic.
Yeah,
it's pretty whacked out. I love that.
Oh, I mean, I think it's hard to really get I think one of the best drum tracks that Cavs has ever recorded is Most of What I Like.
Oh my God!
I mean, just the stereo drumming on that with the hi-hats, and I mean, just all the shit he does with the toms. Like, it's such an interesting choice, like that. Like, that's what he's drumming with, but it works so perfectly.
Yes.
And even on the rest of the album, like, because it is an acoustic album, I think one thing that sets Cavs apart from other drummers is how much tact he has. Like there are some drummers who will just beat the fuck out of the kit no matter what they're playing, and sometimes it works, but like Cavs knows when to drop it back a notch or several. Like with like his drumming on the Altered Beast suite, like he's able to tone it down a little bit for like the lulls, and then he'll bring it back for when they go into like the intense parts. And
and that's just awesome, because they do that live too. Those dynamics aren't just on the record. They know how to bring the record live. Like you can fucking tell, man, those guys practice so much. Those guys have it down to a science. Because I know like Stu's kind of like a very like whimsical guy himself, but he's like, I've heard he's no nonsense kind of like person when it comes to like recording and mixing and doing rehearsals. Like, he wants to get shit done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which agreeably, like it pays off, because their live shows are absolutely insane. And dude, I don't know anybody who can really play the whole Nonagon album all the way through on drums without not dying.
Yeah.
It's just this the whole time. You're doing that the whole time. And it's like getting through the whole of Evil Death Roll is just like I'm panting. It's so fast, but like they do it live, and Cavs is just like straight face, just it's crazy.
Cavs' drummer face, like when they're playing live, is one of the funniest things to me, because like sometimes he looks a little bit panicked, like do I really have to keep this going for this long? Like, can you just start playing? I think they were playing I think it was Planet B at the Secret Korea show. And or the Secret show in Korea. Korea is a well-known country, but they but like he just had like this panicked look, like, fuck, you're gonna make me keep playing the Planet B intro, like for how long? Because like Stu and Joe are like passing a bottle of water around, they're trying to get themselves situated, and Cav's just like, why did I even start playing this? Fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or that's what his face looks like. Maybe he was able to get through it, obviously. Yeah. So you mentioned your sister was able to see Gizz like back in 2013, which is fucking. It blows my mind that you have a sibling that's like at least as into Gizz as you are. Have you gotten to see them live
Yeah.
And
See, I was supposed to see them 4 years ago, but something happened. I couldn't go. I didn't have a ride down. I was supposed to see them at the Trocadero in Philly, and it never ended up happening. And then I had a lot of musical stuff happening. I was playing like gigs every day, so my brain wasn't focused on going to shows, so I just was playing a bunch of shows. And then just this past year, I finally got to see them. So it's weird. I've been like listening to Gizz for a while, but then I didn't get to see them until like 2019. And luckily, I mean, that changed my whole life basically. Like seeing them in the flesh, front row, just watching. I mean, I was right in front of Ambrose, and it kind of like all like I thought they were this sick band, but it went from like, okay, they're this sick band, and then I saw like Ambrose like wailing his harmonica on Gamma Knife like right in fucking front of me, and I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do though. Like this is everything that I want to do. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And ever since then, like I've been like super hooked. Like I was hooked before, and then I got like super hooked after I saw them live, you know? Because that energy is insane that they bring on the stage.
And I mean, that's cool that like you've finally got to see them. Thank God you have seen them, because like, but especially after so long having not seen them, like, because I got to see them for the first time about 8 months after I first heard Polygon Wonderland. That's how I first got into them. And I mean, yeah, I thought I was hooked. I thought I was already a super fan, and then I saw them live in Brooklyn 2018, and it was like that's what really just got me hooked even further. And then I saw them a second time that weekend, and they played the River, and I was like, oh fuck, my life has meaning now. And then I was on mushrooms, but then and then last year I saw them play, you know, I saw them play 3 more times, and then I felt like I got an even further understanding of like what they're about, and basically just to know, stop expecting anything, because they're gonna do whatever it is that they plan out, and you can just trust it's gonna be good. You don't need to have a request or anything. Like,
exactly, you can't put them in a box. They'll always break out of that box, and that's what I love about their music. It's so different from any of, like, they're from their, like, everything we just talked about, their creative process, to how they put it out, to how they work together as a team. It's so different than what anybody else does today. You know what I mean? Most people are just looking for a record label and just try to put their stuff out. These guys, like, they were like, no, we're the record label, fuck that. We're doing everything we want to do. Like, no, you know, you only got one life. You might as well make the music you want to make, you know? Yeah. And that's what I love. I mean, dude, it's crazy. They still, like, have you gotten into, like, how they record and stuff?
Not too much. I know that, like, you know, with, like I watched that isolated tracks that Stu did with KEXP, talking about how he made Honey and how he recorded parts on the iPhone. And like, I know that they used iPhones to record 12 bar, which is fucking cool. But beyond that, I'm not really familiar with their process.
Yeah, I mean, Stu, because he mixes everything, you know, like he gets the say in the final mix before it gets sent off, mastered for, you know, whatever media they're using.
Even the KEXP sessions, like, he mixes.
Yeah. Yep. And he's very into that. And he's kind of like a gear nerd in a way. Like, he's very about, like, weird gear. Like, I remember him saying he was using, like, these specific microphones to record, was it Quarters, or I forget what album it was, but he uses these really lo-fi sounding microphones, and he would put them on, you know, use them as like overheads, use them as like a mono overhead for like a drum, or put them on a snare drum to make it sound super fat and, like, you know, lo-fi. And then apparently, I didn't know this, they used VHS audio to record Quarters, which is fucking really cool. That's crazy. And you can, like, hear it. You can hear, like, the tape like the actual tape saturation on that whole album, like, and it sounds so different. Like, God is in the Rhythm. That song doesn't sound like any other Gizz song, really. You know what I mean? They did, like, this weird 50s, you know, acid trip at prom sort of sound, and that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like God in the Rhythm is basically like they were just doing Led Zeppelin a favor by reworking Dire Maker.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like I don't think that's a very good song. That's my hot take. I don't I don't care for that song too much. But then God in the Rhythm comes along, and it's kind of the same thing, but just way better.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
I don't know if I'm gonna catch shit for that, but I think it's true.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Zeppelin. I'll be honest. I'm not. I like John Paul Jones, and I like what he's kind of like the Cook Craig of the band. You know, he added so many different things, but like as far as I know, man, Led Zeppelin is a blues cover band of what blues was before that. Like they fucking ripped off so many people. So Bonham, I love John Bonham, but again, they stole a lot of music, and you know, it's just kind of coming back up now. Like everybody's like digging into these old like blues psychedelic bands. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like Zeppelin. It's like, yeah, no shit, because Jimmy Page was just like listening to every other guitar player on the planet and just being like, well, my band's gonna be famous, you're not, so we're gonna steal your shit. You know what I mean? That's just like what happened, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like that was. I think that's pretty common with any '60s band, just taking all the blues shit.
Yep.
And I mean, shit, like Paul McCartney was all like his number one influence was Little Richard, you know. And yeah, I mean, like there was a lot of appropriation from like blues, jazz, black culture into rock and roll, and I guess Jimi Hendrix was kind of like one of the only ones that really saw that all the way through, and unfortunately, also saw it through to an overdose or whatever. But it was like I'm basically past the point of like faulting '60s bands for like sounding too derivative of blues, because it's like that's all they had to go on. Plus whatever acid.
Yeah, they didn't have a whole lot to work with. I like the bands that I just watched an interview, or not an interview, like a documentary about Ginger Baker. And that dude, I mean, he came from like a jazz background, and the way that Cream came together as those three guys, it's like two jazz musicians and then Eric Clapton, basically. Yeah. And dude, Cream is so good. I mean, there's like nobody that sounded like that back then. And all these drummers now are just like, yeah, Ginger Baker played shit so differently. You know what I mean? Like a lot of, and this is like going back to like the 60s, like I'm a big like 60s, drum kind of nerd. I love like all the drummers that were like kind of carving their own path back then and like coming up with these new ways to play basically jazz and blues. But they were just playing it really fucking loud. You know what I mean? I love that. And like that's what Ginger Baker is doing. Like nobody would have thought to play the drums on, Sunshine Your Love like that. That's a very weird drum pattern, you know what I mean? Just like the toms, the way he utilized everything. That's so cool, I don't know, I love that stuff. And I like the drummers that are still kind of like getting weird and not being, not afraid to like carve their own path regardless of like what they listen to, you know what I mean? Like it's going back to Gizz, like bands do that. Bands will like listen to stuff together and just be like, we should make an album like this. You know what I mean? Like I guess they were listening to a lot of like krautrock when they made Float Along. Yeah. And that's why you have that insane Head on Pill jam session, I
mean, just what a great song. And like they don't really have any other songs like that where they just, like it's just 15 plus minutes of just kind of anything goes with just played over this sort of drone backing, like this consistent drone really. And one thing I wanted to talk about, because like you mentioned, like all these drummers playing basically jazz and just experimenting with that. I feel like an evolution of that has been with Gizz doing all the polymetric stuff, like the drum tracks on Polygondwana Land, and now the tracks on KG, because that's also pretty polymetric. When you first heard the did the drum track on Polygondwana Land like sort of shift your perspective on drums in a certain way the first time you heard it?
Sort of. I mean, I was listening I was listening to them when they did like Nonagon, and I'm like, well, this guy, like everything that I heard from them before was like pretty like straightforward. Like, you know, I listened to like I always thought of them as like a garage rock band, and then when that came out, I was like, okay, they're definitely not that anymore. They're not. I mean, they are in a sense of like DIY, but they're very. This record sounds like clean. You know what I mean? This record sounds like very, very like good. And the drums on that, yeah, it basically it changed the way I kind of like. They kind of gained a whole new level of like musicianship for me when that came out, and I still sometimes sit around. I mean, I figured the whole album out at one point, and then I just like it sort of kills it for me because I just sit there and listen to it over and over, and I'm just like, all right, I don't want to like burn this song out. You know what I mean? Like I love this song. Like I was trying to figure out one day, Desert Dunes. And I was like, this groove is so cool. Like all those, like the bass grooves and the drum grooves on that album are so cool. And I remember trying to teach a kid the fourth color, and I was just like, dude, you just got to keep that. You got to keep that ride cymbal going the whole time. You know, and I love that. I love that they're able to bring all those cool polyrhythms and all those cool, you know, odd time signatures into their songs, and they're not too tacky. You know what I mean? Like they make sense in those songs. Like it's not like this weird neo, you know, cheesy prog happening. It's like these songs are cool. You know what I mean? And it's pretty interesting. Eric and Cavs did like an interview with Drummer World, and they said like it's hard for them to play in 4/4 anymore because they're so used to playing in like 7/8 and 5/8 and like all these weird time signatures. You know, I can't imagine how much they actually like got together and like practiced those drum parts. You know?
Well, and like what I've noticed from playing guitar and like trying to figure out, like how to play in rhythm on guitar, it's like when you're playing those, time signatures that aren't 4/4 or even, divisible by 4, you're playing some odd time signature, like you would basically need to get your whole body into like a groove in order to like count. At least for me, like I need to like really immerse myself in this new time signature, because otherwise I feel like I'm gonna revert back to some 4 time or something. And so like once Eric said that, I was like, cool. So it's cool that they feel like that too. Like like shit's still hard for them sometimes.
Yeah, and it's especially with I've seen videos of them like, well, sort of like how they work together as drummers, and basically, I mean, I'll be honest, the dead drummers like Mickey and
Kreutzmann. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. Live, dude, sometimes they sound like work boots in a dryer. Like they're not together. And maybe that's just the brown acid they were taking at the time. But man, like they sound off. There's never really a time where I've heard those two drummers like not, you know what I mean? Like they've never been like off. And that scares me because I'm like, well, how much time like did they put into this? Because I actually used to be in a band playing with another drummer, and I listen back to recordings and I'm like, oh shit, man, like I'm really off. Like we're kind of on 2 different planes here. But man, it's like they're one drummer. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And especially like even in the studio, even on like live KEXP sessions, they're so tight. It sounds like one drummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like one drummer, and then like, I mean, especially with Nonagon, like having both them on like doing the drumming together, it's like it adds just that extra thing. Like it adds a little more power by having like 2 people on snare drums and shit.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what do you think they're gonna do live, like going forward now that it's just Cavs as far as we know? Do you think it would make sense for Gizz to find a new drummer to replace Eric, or do you think Cavs is just gonna have to hold it down on his own?
So that's a tough one. I think about that like every night before I go to sleep. I'm like, who's gonna be the new drummer? And I'm like, nah, Cavs got this. You know what I mean? I'm like, I think he's gonna do it alone. I think it makes more sense. Eric was more so like, see, the whole thing with Eric is when he like started to get on the kit around like Float Along, like Stu basically just said like it just seemed like more funner and louder, and like nobody's telling us not to fucking do it. So like, yeah, we're gonna have 2 drummers. They were pretty carefree going into it with 2 drummers. But over the years, since I think they got bigger, I don't know, maybe they've come into different problems with having 2 drummers because, you know, it takes double the time setting up, you know, they have to, you know, maybe get the sound check a little earlier. You know, they have to make sure, like, you know, with recording, 2 drums is very, like, you know, there's a lot of different problems that could pop up with 2 drummers, you know. So I think they might just be going with Cavs because Cavs, let's be honest, Cavs was kind of just playing on the records anyway, pretty much after, you know, Microtonal. Yeah. Basically from like Float Along to, I don't know. I mean, he didn't fucking do anything on Paper Mache. It literally says he did nothing, which I love.
Well, I mean, I think that was a joke, obviously, but like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Cavs recorded both drum tracks because like they did have like those like the stereo drums on most of What I Like, and
well, that's what he did. Like that's what they do. Like when they that's like a recording trick of theirs, and I figured that out. Like Stu likes to pan like one drum take to the left, and then he'll do another drum take, and then pan that to the right. So it's not like it's like a full stereo spread, but of like 2 different takes, and it makes it sound fatter in the mix. And you know, they've both played on songs like, you know, Nuclear Fusion with the hi-hats going back and forth. Like that's both of them playing. A lot of microtonals, those two playing, and then they have obviously on Nonagon it's both of them playing. Because Stu, like, that was like, we're gonna make this like work with all 7 of us. Like that was gonna be the goal of that album, to try to get like all 7 of them playing at the same time, you know, on a record, which it worked, you know. But I think he played an important part as far as like thickening up the sound. But I think they'll just keep Cavs and just kind of like keep doing the double up with the drums on the record, you know.
Yeah.
But who knows? You know, they might surprise us.
Yeah, I feel like there's some sort of surprise in store. I because like there's this. It seems like incomplete, you know, like. Because like part of like what was so cool about seeing them live, it seemed at least, was just like just watching the dynamic between Eric and Cavs the whole time, like because like they're just staring at each other and like
they're like hyper focused, like especially like what was it, like 2017? They were just facing each other. They were just like staring at each other.
Yeah, you know? And honestly, I liked that better than, you know, this last tour where they were just, you know, side by side and Eric was just sort of like looking over. But like it's such a, like it brings a different intensity. Because like I remember the first time I ever saw a group play with 2 drummers, it was the Melvins in 2013.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw them play when I was living in Pittsburgh, and it was just sick because you got like Dale Crover and I forget their other drummer's name, but like they're just, you know, fucking facing each other and just playing like the absolute sludgiest shit for like 20 minutes straight. And it was just such a cacophony of, you know, just noise and sludge, but you could also tell like it was very much fueled by the drums, like the 2 drummers holding that focus and looking at each other. Like it was just something else, you know, sort of hypnotizing.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I love the concept of 2 drummers, you know, like even the Allman Brothers band, like that shit, those dudes work so well together. And you know, again, sometimes Brown Acid, man, they sound like work boots on a dryer, but you know, occasionally it works together and it sounds so good. Especially like, I don't know, the way Gizzard like mixes their drums is really interesting. Like Stu, and this all, you know, this goes back to like recording and how he likes to record. He just keeps experimenting. There's never like a, you know, like a style of recording he does. Like he just fucks around and just likes to mix and match things. And, you know, I think it's interesting. Like one of the albums that always gets the most shit is Eyes Like the Sky, obviously, you know. But dude, that album was recorded with one mic hanging from the ceiling.
That's how that was recorded?
I'm pretty sure that's what I read. And it's like, That's amazing. That album sounds so good. That's another album where it's like they authenticated that sound. And I love like spaghetti western. I love surf. I love all that stuff. And that album is just a genius record. You know, I hate that it doesn't. It's spoken word. So you know, everything that Gizz does, like spoken word, most people are just like, I don't, you know, they can't like listen to it recreationally. But it's like, you gotta like if you like listen to like what they're doing on the instruments, it's like there's some like grooves on that record, like Year of Our Lord. That bass line is so cool. Like the sounds they're getting are just insane, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear them go back to like do some, you know, revisiting of that spaghetti western surf sound that they got. Because like that's also like one of my favorite. I mean, like before I saw King Gizzard, I think the best live show I had seen was Dick Dale. And like because he would have like all these, you know, different stories throughout his life into it, and like he would just fuck around with the band too. Like you know, he would like take the drummers. He would take a drumstick from the drummer and just start playing his guitar, like just knocking it up and shit, and just like making the strings vibrate. And he would also use the drumstick as like a slide on his buddy's bass, and it was like, yeah, it was fucking cool just to see all that shit. And like he's also got that super reverby, you know, shit. Like he would just like stop playing and say how he was friends with Leo Fender and how he helped him design like all the shit.
Dick Dale basically made Fender amps because it's funny. He plays like upside down and backwards and shit. Well, that's how I play. So I did a bunch of research on how like he gets his sound and how he like plays chords and stuff. And dude, his whole thing is so weird because what does he use? He uses the amp he has. I think it was a Twin Reverb. It's like a Bandmaster or something. He uses these like massive speakers, and basically he was just blowing them out. Like, and Leo is just like, dude, like you gotta stop blowing my amps out. He's just like, well, there's more people come to my shows. They're screaming. It's like all these surfers are just like stomping their shoes on the ground. I can't fucking hear anything. So Leo's just like, all right, we're gonna make the best amp for you. We're gonna make the biggest, loudest amp, and that's like what it's a dual Showman. That's what he uses. He uses a Fender dual Showman, and dude, they're insanely loud, you know. And I mean, you play guitar. What string gauge do you put on what string gauge do you use?
I use 11s.
11. So he uses a 16.
Shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Stevie Ray Vaughan used to use like 13s, and like that was considered extreme.
Yeah. I think he used like a 16 gauge string, and he tunes it. He doesn't tune his guitar regularly. He tunes it, and so he has it like written on his guitar. It's so crazy. But again, like there's an interview with him where basically, there's two stories. Like there's an interview with him where he's just like, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just like banging on the thing. Like, I don't know what fucking chords are. I'm just trying to make it sound cool. And he actually met Dick Dale, and he was, I mean, God bless him. But like, he did this like Coke commercial because he was like broke. And he like went up, he's like going around to these like little kids saying like, don't drink Coke, you're gonna rot your teeth out and shit. Oh man, he was such a like funny guy, you know. But yeah, I love Dick Dale. That sound, you know, like he invented that sound, you know, which I love. You know, he wasn't trying to be anybody else. He was just like, this thing sounds cool through this amp, I'm just gonna keep doing it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and he just fucking owned it. And it was so cool just to see him because, like, you know, if you didn't know who he was, he might sound like kind of a dick, but like he was just like he was telling the sound man before the show started, just like turn my mic all the way up because like he didn't like to be right up in it. He liked to just sort of be able to whisper and shit. And and the sound guy was just like, no, I can't turn it up. He was like, keep turning it up. I fucking know how this works. I invented this shit.
Yeah, exactly. You can't argue with somebody like that. Like, you just can't. Like, that's what I love. That's what I love about like those, like these older guys that are still like around. They're just like, they don't give a shit because they were there. You know what I mean? They did it. So it's like, I don't know. I love that people, like younger people, are like carrying that flame of just like, we don't give a shit. Like, you know, like, do you listen to Ty Segall at all?
A little bit.
He's kind of the same way. Like, he's kind of just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna like, I know what I want and I'm gonna do it, and that's it. He's kind of like another one of those like guys that's still like very weird and just kind of carving his own path.
Yeah.
But still, he put out a ton of albums. But yeah,
well,
so I love that stuff too, like all that, you know, grungy garage rock and shit, you know.
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah, and like we're running a little long, but like honestly, I don't care because the quality is fucking good. Like, it's a fucking fun conversation. But like I think we will get to wrapping up soon. But you know, you're talking about how you play upside down. There's another guy who I've just really gotten into the last few months, who also plays upside down. Are you familiar with Mono Neon?
Dude, Mono Neon is a spectacle. That dude, I've been following that dude for like 6 years, and I've got to see his videos like getting more and more crazier. There's like I never ran into him, but I always knew people who like played with Mono Neon, because Mono Neon doesn't like, he's not very specific with who he plays with. He just wants to play music, you know.
Yeah.
And he's a really, really, really good musician. That dude is insane.
Played with Prince.
Yeah. He played with Prince. He played with a bunch of like newer funk bands.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of collab stuff. You know, he does a lot of collaborative things, like with I think he plays with Ghost Note. He plays with Snarky Puppy. He does a bunch of crazy stuff. His whole thing is just super. Like he basically is what Funkadelic was back then. Now. Yeah. Like overly funky. Like you look at this guy and you're like, okay, this is sick. Like I'm never gonna see this again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, he's another artist who I want to support basically the same way like I support Gizz. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that dude's onto something fucking great. I purchased one of his like he released a vinyl pressing of an album he released last year, Living the Best and Worst Life at the Same Damn time. And yeah, so I saw he had just a few copies left. Like it was a 500 print run, and I was like, I'm getting this. Like, it was. I mean, it's just a fucking cool thing, and that's something that I think he pressed himself. Like, there's no record label. There's like the vinyl itself doesn't even say which side is which. Oh yeah, that's the best. That's the best. Yeah. So that was just something I wanted to make sure we hit. But before I let you go, is there anything that we haven't discussed yet, Gizz related, that you've been thinking about? No, man, I think we're good. I just hope they're pretty much just. I hope they just keep playing and making music. I hope they occasionally take a weird turn. I know Ambrose is learning saxophone right now, so I think we'll see some like sax on some records, which is going to be fucking insane. I don't know how the hell that's going to turn out, but I hope it's not what I expect. You know what I mean? I hope it's going to throw me. I hope all the music they put out is just going to throw me for a loop, because that's what they've done for the past 5 years that I've basically listened to them. So yeah, man, I'm stoked. They're my favorite band, and I'm going to try to keep just supporting them the best way I can. Just giving my fucking wallet to them, basically, working to support their music, Damn right, man. Dude, Egan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. Take it easy.
You too, man.